and the Rio Grande Depot hasn't seen a passenger train since 1999.
Okay, 99, okay.
And so then we'll go over to the Salt Lake Central Station, which has had Amtrak at it since 1999, which is now over 25 years ago, and that has been a temporary station for over 25 years.
And you know what? It
now.
looks temporary too.
Yes.
Well, hey, while we have the sun on your face here, let's get some quick introductions. Mike, it's so wonderful to see you back here in Salt Lake City again. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Mike Christensen. I have been involved with Active Towns and CNU and Strong Towns for, since 2013.
Yeah.
And I've been on the Active Towns podcast a couple times.
A few times, yeah.
Mainly talking about trains.
Yeah.
But I am the executive director of the Utah Rail Passengers Association, which is advocating for trying to expand passenger rail and specifically Amtrak across Utah and into the neighboring states. And I also serve on the board of directors of the National Rail Passengers Association and also serve on Salt Lake City's Planning Commission. And
fantastic.
Have been on the Planning Commission for almost 4 years now.
Talk a little bit about where we're at, this location, because I think this is going to be central to the conversation that we're going to have. We've got a wonderful green space behind us. What's that all about?
We do. We have Pioneer Park, which back in the day, it was actually home to a fort here in Salt Lake City. And at some point was turned into a park. I forget the exact history, but it has been one of our focal points that actually hosts our farmers market every Saturday during the summer, which attracts a whole lot of people. Yeah. And one interesting thing is that the street right behind us, 400 West, up until the late 90s actually had the Union Pacific Railroad's main line going down the center of the street.
Oh, right here where the trees are?
Right here, yep, where the median is in the center of the street.
Wow.
And a little bit later we'll be over on 500 West, which is where the Rio Grande Railway used to have its rail line come through. And then we'll eventually show you where those lines have been consolidated and where we'll talk about how we want to actually move those lines to make it more conducive to urbanism and redevelopment here.
All right, well, let's do it. Let's walk and talk. So I've noticed that there's been an interesting mix of activity at the park over the past couple of days that I've been here. There's clearly an issue with a lot of unhoused folks that are there, but then there's also, I saw a couple soccer games happening, football for those of you from Europe. So there's lots of different activities going on. So it's suffering from some of the challenges that exist throughout the world.
Yes, and that's definitely a problem that we have in Salt Lake City because our housing market has become very much like elsewhere, like California, where the housing is very expensive here, and we are trying as hard as we can to build more housing and bring the costs down. Right. But it's a difficult thing to actually accomplish. Right. And Okay. Which it's a double-edged sword because I am a homeowner, I own a townhouse. Sure. And the value has more than doubled in the time, almost 2 decades that I've owned it. So that has been good. But the other problem is that I realized that I probably wouldn't be able to afford buying it at the price that it's valued today. Sure. And I realize, well, especially since I'm very big into strong towns, I realize that the expectation that housing prices always be going up and up and up, that's completely unsustainable and is probably one of the biggest threats to America.
And I would imagine that that also is an indication that you're probably kind of stuck where you're at.
Exactly.
In the sense that, because if housing prices continue rising so much, especially aggressively, then, many people kind of get locked into their property because they can't necessarily afford to buy whatever that replacement place is that they might want to go to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So not all, that ever increasing rate of increase in price in housing value is not necessarily always a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And especially when the results of it is just so many people being out on the street.
Yeah. Now, refresh my memory. It seems to me like a few years ago, maybe it was the mayor, maybe it was city council, really kind of ran on the premise of trying to fix the housing issue and crisis. Did that ever happen, or did it start to happen and then fell apart? What was the issue?
I can't remember exactly who said it.
Yeah.
Whether, there was an effort in the late 2010s to figure things out, and they announced that they were going to take a housing first approach.
Right, yeah, housing first, yeah.
And that really failed to materialize.
Okay.
But
it's easier to say than actually do.
Yeah, it's much easier to say. And whoever said it basically said that, we've like mission accomplished, we've solved the problem. And that has definitely not been the case.
Right. Got a fire engine rolling through. All right.
And they are most likely responding to someone who is at we have one of the service locations for people who are unhoused over here.
And it is in that direction. Talk a little bit about the crossroads where we're at right now.
We are at 200 South and 400 West. This is actually the end of a section of 200 South that stretches through our downtown that was recently reconstructed. And we've added bike lanes and a bus-only lane. And it's a really good example of doing things much better. The downside is that it has caused a bit of a backlash with the legislature here in Utah. The legislature actually imposed some restrictions on Salt Lake City in the last legislative session that requires us in certain situations to have to do additional studies and coordinate with our state DOT, even if it is a completely city-owned street. If the proposal is to eliminate any general car lanes or reduce the widths of
travel lanes, reduce the width,
then it would trigger approval and additional studies with our state DOT.
Interesting.
Which, the way that they wrote it, it only applies to Salt Lake City. And
so it sounds very vindictive.
Yes, it was, from what we're learning, was triggered by some very wealthy people who were worried about restricting auto access to some of the things in the community, that some of their businesses. And it is extremely short-sighted because, as we might have seen on the video, that we did have our light rail train passing by. So we are trying very hard to encourage people to use alternative ways rather than just driving everywhere, especially in the downtown. And it's been difficult because not everyone is quite on board with that and sees any loss of auto-only infrastructure as a threat. even though we're in a city that doesn't really have that much of a traffic issue, even at rush hour.
Yeah.
But it remains to be an issue at times.
It's very interesting that they seem to be that motivated by that. I mean, do you get a sense as to whether these were politicians, legislators that were from outside of the city, or?
Yes.
Okay. So that makes it even more curious, because it's like they're not even part here, but if they're worried that it's access from outside the city, interesting. Yeah.
Right. Well,
so it can almost be like a perception thing, of where the perception is that it's harder to drive here than it really is.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and where it really bumps into reality not meeting perception is in parking in downtown Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
There is this perception that there's not enough parking, and there was actually a study that was done that was commissioned by Salt Lake City and the Downtown Alliance here,
right.
That was done back in 2016. It was actually Jeffrey Tumlin. At that point, he was with Nelson Nygaard,
Right.
who.
Speaking of parking.
Yeah, speaking of parking.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no lack of parking in any North American city.
Right. Well,
especially not in Salt Lake City.
It's even less of a lack here, because that study revealed that even at the busiest, which just the regular weekday parking use was the peak parking use, that we still only had like 75% of our parking spaces occupied.
Yeah. At the peak.
And that study looked at all of the public parking garages, all of the public on-street parking, all of the publicly accessible off-street parking, and basically determined that we could build on all of our surface parking lots. And still have plenty of parking.
More than enough parking, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the mayor at the time was one of the people living under the expectation that we didn't have enough parking. So that was not the answer that she wanted to hear, and so that study got shelved. And is now, about to turn 10 years old next year.
Yeah.
And the parking demand's probably even less because of the extent of the number of people that are now, working remotely.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so we are rolling up to an absolutely gorgeous building. And I suspect you're going to tell us all about this building in just a moment.
Yes. I forget exactly what year the building was built.
Yeah.
But it was about the 1910s or so.
Let's actually go across the street to the corner in the sun, and then we can get a bigger and better view of this. And we'll have the building as our backdrop.
Yep.
We can go for it, because guess what? There's no freaking traffic.
Yeah.
We're at rush hour right now, and there's literally no cars. Imagine that. So
it was in the 1910s that the Union Pacific built this building. And the rail line that I mentioned earlier that came up 400 West here, about 2 blocks further south, that rail line veered behind the building, behind the rail station. And up until the late 90s, there was a big rail yard that Union Pacific had there. And in the late 90s, there was a merger of Union Pacific and Southern Pacific, which at that point, Southern Pacific was actually owned by the Denver Rio Grande Western Railway.
Interesting, okay.
And so it created a whole lot of redundant rail infrastructure after that merger happened.
Right.
And you can see one of our new trains going by here.
Yeah.
But another big thing happened about the same time that we hosted the Olympics, Winter Olympics in 2002. And there was interest in consolidating all of these rail lines that went through downtown into one corridor. And that meant that Union Pacific had the opportunity to sell off this rail yard for redevelopment, and that redevelopment became the Gateway, which is a mixed-use mall that is right here behind the Union Pacific Depot. But Amtrak was created in 1971, and this served as the Amtrak station for Salt Lake City until 1986.
Wow, okay.
At which point, Union Pacific made some changes and eliminated some junctions, which meant that it was really difficult for trains to get into this station.
Okay.
So they actually moved the Amtrak station over to the Rio Grande Depot, which we'll go by
in just a little bit. Yeah.
And
let's actually go across again, and then let's go in so people can get a sense as to what the interior is like. Because boy, when we used to have these magnificent train depots, it was, I mean, most people will think of, the Union Pacific as a freight line and everything, but these were grand buildings that had been constructed.
Exactly.
And so, what is this building now?
It is the Asher Adams Hotel, which Asher and Adams were the last names of two surveyors for the Union Pacific who helped to survey the Transcontinental Railway that opened in 1869. And also have to mention that right across the street here is the Delta Center, which is where the Utah Jazz has played, I think, since 1994, if I remember right. And it's now where our new hockey team, the Utah Mammoth, plays.
Will also be.
And it's being remodeled over the next 3 years in order to upgrade the building so that it works better for both basketball and hockey. It was built initially as a basketball venue, which with the provision to have an ice sheet for hockey games, but we're making upgrades so that it works better for
works
hockey.
Even better. So talk a little bit about this plaque that we have right here.
Yes, the Transcontinental Railroad that was built 1869 went not through Salt Lake City, but through Ogden, which is about 30 miles to the north. But it wasn't very long after that was completed that the rail line to Salt Lake City was completed. So we've had rail service here ever since 1870. And so there's been passenger trains serving Salt Lake City ever since 1870.
Very cool. All right.
Let's walk through the building.
Let's take a look and see what the inside is like here. Until they run us out, since I'm rolling my bike.
Well, hopefully we can just move right through.
And really what I love, that server was, talking with the patrons there about things that are happening here in this space. And this is exactly what I wanted to show people, is just how gorgeous and beautiful the interiors are of these old historic buildings.
Exactly.
Which, when I was in Chicago, reveling in that, in Denver, reveling in that, I would love to have gotten off of Amtrak and strolled through this type of space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have, in addition to various stained glass windows around here, we also have 2 murals.
Yeah.
One of them is captioned with 1847,
Yeah.
which shows when Brigham Young and the Mormon pioneers
Right.
arrived in the Salt Lake Valley in 1847.
Yeah.
And then the other mural is 1869, which is when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, unfortunately for about a decade, this building was mostly locked up,
Right.
except for just events. And so there wasn't even an option for the public to just pass through it like we
Right.
are now. So that's one of the great things that's come from having this be redeveloped
Right.
as a hotel.
Yeah.
But we could have, in fact, there were some people in the late 90s that were proposing this be the central train station for Salt Lake City.
Of course.
But unfortunately, we weren't ready in terms of having the transit connecting to it
Right.
at that point. And so there was more of an interest in just wanting to redevelop it than
Right.
to turn it into a transportation hub
Yeah.
again.
Well, I'm sure it's a delightful hotel, and what a great bar space to hang out in. So,
Yeah.
I could tell that, or you can just imagine that during the height of one of the sports events, the basketball games, or now the hockey, that this would just be a happening place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This part is new.
Yeah.
That's basically where most of the hotel rooms are,
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
you want to stay in one of the very lavish ones that are inside the original building.
Right.
But as we look out across this plaza, which this was all built so that it opened and kind of about the same time that we were doing the 2002 Olympics here in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And this used to be a rail yard.
Yeah.
This used to be where the passenger trains were stopping.
Okay.
And now it is a plaza with a fountain that commemorates the 2002 Olympics.
Okay.
And if you can pick up your bike, we can go down, we can take a shortcut and go
sure.
down
Let's do it.
the steps here.
Let's do the shortcut.
The names on the wall behind me are the names of all of the volunteers for the 2002 Olympics, of which I was one of them.
Yeah.
My name is right up on that panel.
Excellent.
So this is a special place to me because my name's on the wall.
You were one of the
I was one of
dedicated
dedicated
volunteers that helped to
volunteers.
make this happen. And I see lots of bricks here with names engraved.
These
people
are
that
all names of sponsors
Yeah.
that
helped to make it
part
happen.
of the Olympics,
Yeah.
which we, as long as everything goes as planned, we'll be hosting the Winter Olympics again in 2034.
Right. There's already talk of being prepared for that.
Yes.
It'll be interesting too to see, just how much more, prepared the city is. A lot will have changed, in, the 32 years from hosting in 2002 to 2034. So yeah, from a mobility and transportation perspective, have you heard any early rumblings or signs as to some of the stuff that they're thinking about?
Well, the big project that we want to have done is double tracking our commuter rail line,
Right.
which is Front Runner, Right now it's mainly a single track system,
Yeah.
which makes it so you've got to have everything very well timed when
Yeah.
trains are meeting.
And I was on Forerunner today. I was on the Provo line.
Oh yeah, going
heading
down
to
Lehigh.
Lehigh.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a couple points where we had to pause. So it's double tracked at a lot of the stations.
Right.
And then, we paused a little bit for the southbound train as I was returning. And but it was no big deal. It worked. But yeah, I can see
currently
that we need to.
about 25% double tracked,
Yeah.
and this project will take it to 50% double tracked.
Okay.
Which also will basically almost double the size of the fleet.
Right.
So that right now they run hourly service most of the time with half-hourly service during rush hour.
Right, yeah. I was able to take the half-hour service during the morning,
Yeah.
but on the way back, I was on the hourly service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to increase that to half-hourly service all the time, and
Yeah.
then with 15-minute service at rush hour.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's one of the projects. Another project would reroute some of our light rail system, and also add an additional line
Yeah.
that will connect, so that we'll have trains running directly from the airport to the University of Utah,
Right.
which the Olympic Village will probably be at the University of Utah
Yeah.
again.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's an interesting place to host the Winter Olympics. Of course, the skiing is up in the mountains, which are easily accessible, just right up the road. And folks can be easily bussed up there. Do some of the athletes, like the skiing athletes, do they stay up there, or is everybody down here?
I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do. Well, I know because I was a volunteer for the Olympics and worked with the German National Olympic Committee, which was probably one of the best volunteer jobs that you could have, actually working with the National Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
I was aware that the German teams for some of the sports actually leased homes that were close to the venues.
Interesting.
But not every team has the resources to do stuff like that, and
Right.
relies more on the housing, like the Olympic Village.
Got it.
But
got
they
it.
did have, because the venue for Nordic skiing and the biathlon was so far out,
Right.
they did have like a satellite Olympic Village there
Yeah.
to help the athletes that were competing in those sports
Okay.
to reduce their travel times.
Right. So talk
But-
a little bit about this whole venue. Again, this used to be all kind of rail yard kind of
Yeah,
area.
like again, this used
Yeah.
to be a rail yard.
And it's all been redeveloped and everything.
Right.
How successful has this been?
It's a very interesting story
Yeah.
because if we rewind back to about the year 2000 or so, we had our main malls in Salt Lake City were in the downtown area.
Yeah.
We're about 4 blocks west of downtown.
Yeah.
And those malls had kind of like not been invested in very much.
Right.
And we're gonna cross right over here. But when this mall, the Gateway, was opened in about 2002, it kind of sucked the life out of what was left of our downtown malls.
Right. Yeah.
And the downtown malls were, for a while had been owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because they are right across the street from Temple Square, basically.
Right.
And they had Well, basically, when the gateway opened, it sucked all of the business
Yeah.
over to the gateway, sucked it away from the malls downtown.
Right.
And so by about 2006 or so, those malls were really dead.
Yeah.
And from a real estate perspective, the church was very concerned about basically downtown becoming a dead zone.
Right.
So they closed down those malls in 2006 and started a massive remodeling of those malls into what is now the City Creek Center.
Oh, so that's the City Creek
That's
Center.
City Creek Center downtown.
Okay, yeah. So that used to be
And
old, kind of
They used to be
old-fashioned
old-fashioned malls, which
Yeah.
now it's a really nice open air mall.
Yeah, yeah.
But the Gateway, which was massively successful,
Yeah.
then basically the Gateway had sucked everything from downtown
Yeah.
over to here.
Yeah.
And then when the City Creek Center opened in 2012, it
Yeah.
sucked everything back.
The ebb and flow back and forth.
So initially, like, the Gateway was okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then it started to die.
Yeah.
And it has since, and really the thing that saved it was the fact that the Gateway was built not just as a mall, but as mixed use.
Yeah.
So there's housing, there's apartments,
Yeah.
there's townhomes, there's
Yeah.
condos there.
And literally across the street, there's the Delta Center
Exactly,
too.
yeah.
So yeah.
And there are some other venues at the Gateway, like
Yeah.
we have the planetarium, and there's a children's museum.
Yeah, yeah.
And that we don't have over at City Creek Center,
Sure, sure.
which is one of the reasons why there was interest in having it persist.
Yeah.
But it was really the housing, the fact that people literally live there.
Yeah.
And that really required the owners of the Gateway to rethink how to go about redeveloping it into a more flexible venue.
Yeah.
And so the Gateway that we have now is a lot different than how it was when it first opened.
Right, right.
It's not nearly as retail focused
Yeah.
as it was initially,
Yeah.
but it still has managed to turn itself into a very vibrant
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. So we've strolled our way down Rio Grande, and you guys pronounce it Rio Grande or Rio Grande?
Rio Grande.
Okay. And so we're here on Rio Grande Street, and we are in front of the historic Rio Grande Depot. Interestingly enough, it says State of Utah, so it's owned by the state now?
Yes, I forget exactly at what point the state took over.
Yeah.
But it was home to Salt Lake City's Amtrak station from 1986 until 1999 when rail lines got reconsolidated. And it was built in, I believe, 1910 or right thereabouts.
Yeah.
But at some point, the state of Utah gained ownership, and then after it was no longer being used as a train station,
Yeah.
it actually became home to the Division of State History,
Okay.
where, like, basically they have everything that's doing archaeology and state historical preservation, things like that,
Right.
was done here.
Yeah.
And that was used until 2020. And in March of 2020, we all know that there was a big thing happening in the world.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, I forget the exact date in March. I think it was about March 18th. We had a 5.7 earthquake here in the Salt Lake Valley.
Oh, that was a pretty good rumbler.
It was a pretty good rumbler, yeah.
Yeah.
It was right about 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
and I remember being very rudely
Yeah.
shaken awake by it. It didn't do much damage except for some unreinforced masonry buildings,
Sure.
like
this one.
Like this one.
Wow.
And so it sustained enough damage that it has, well, because of the pandemic, there wasn't anybody actively
There.
using the building at
Right.
the time. but it's been closed ever since then, and they have been going through and seismically retrofitting it.
Interesting. Yeah, I was wondering why it was being so, why it was all boarded up. I saw the state historic preservation signs everywhere and all of that, so the documents and archives. And so that makes a heck of a lot more sense that they need to get this thing fixed up, because you can't have state employees in there in a building that is going to have masonry flopping down at any given point in time. Yeah.
And because of the pandemic, and this building was closed, all of the Department of State History got moved somewhere else.
Somewhere else, yeah.
And so they've been slowly retrofitting it, because it hasn't. There's not any current planned use for this building.
Okay.
So,
but I'm assuming there's a few people who have some ideas as to what we could use this for.
Yeah. Let's get a better view here.
Yeah.
But there is a plan to bring trains back to this building.
Yeah, I love that. There is a plan.
There is a plan. Yeah. It's actually a plan developed by local citizens.
Yeah.
That's called the Rio Grand Plan.
Yeah. Are you part of that?
And yes.
Okay.
It was interesting because I was in grad school just before the pandemic, and kind of came to the same conclusions that other people came to independently, that we really need to have a central station, train station here in Salt Lake City that is worthy of a city our size and stature.
And it's a capital city.
Exactly. And we also have this problem of having railroad tracks going through Salt Lake City that sometimes blocks access, sometimes for hours at a time because of slow-moving freight trains.
Yeah.
So the two components are to have a beautiful train station and also move the railroad tracks below grade.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I'm having us walk is because currently the way that this station, not just because of the fact that it's closed for the seismic retrofit, but also even before that, it was more of an obstacle to movement throughout the neighborhood.
Sure.
Because you could walk through the building when it was open during the day from 9 to 5.
Sure.
And at one point, you could walk around the building.
Yeah.
But because of some of the issues with unhoused people, they really locked down access around the building.
Yeah.
So now the next thing we're going to do is actually walk all the way around to the other side.
Let's do that. Yeah. Let's start strolling.
It really illustrates the difficulty in if you don't manage a public asset correctly, it can become more of an obstacle.
Yeah.
Than the asset that it should be.
Yeah.
And we will see as we walk around that it takes a few minutes to walk.
It takes a few minutes, and also, as folks can tell, we have no problems commanding authority of the street, because it's not a high traffic area, and it really should have permeability for people from a biking and walking perspective, active mobility. There's several opportunities that I noticed between some of these buildings that could have had, pathways that get you from one side to the other, as well as just permeability through the actual building, the way that we did with the old Union Pacific Depot. So,
exactly. Yeah. And part of the difficulty of not having that permeability became very evident in 2013, because Broadway, which is also 300 South, which is the street that terminates at the Rio Grande Depot. That street in 2013 got protected bike lanes on it.
Yeah.
And it was intended to be the bike corridor to reach Salt Lake Central Station, which is on the other side.
From a transit perspective,
The problem was that as the location got locked down
Yeah.
because of issues, it made it so that it didn't fulfill the connection that needed to be made over there.
Yeah. And we'll reconnect with 300 on the other side of the Rio Grande Depot in just a moment or two. We'll pop up on the sidewalk here. Not because we have to, but just because this is a little bit more pleasant. We've got some trees here because we actually do have some newer apartments.
This building was just opened like a month or two ago.
Right. Now, I also want to point out for everybody, it's probably been pretty obvious that we've been able to talk and carry on a conversation and stroll down these abandoned streets. We're about ready to get assaulted by noise as we go up to the Strode here. And again, reinforcing that cities are not noisy, cars make cities noisy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the street that's ahead of us is 400 South, which is a state highway.
Yeah. And it's a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. But we are getting, like this building shows that we can still get pretty good land use along it.
Yeah. I'm just kind of scanning over the camera so that we can show that this is an absolute mess of a
The
street.
viaduct that we see
Yeah.
before us, which is going over the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City was actually able to coordinate with UDOT, and we're actually in the process of removing one of the travel lanes in order to have a protected bike, two-way cycle track that will be on the south side on the left there.
And what we're going to see here, if we pause for just a second here, I think we see exactly what you were talking about is the necessity for connectivity. This guy's going to literally roll right through that road closed barrier and make his way over to the tracks station.
Exactly.
Or excuse me, it could be the tracks, or he could be getting on the front runner. Either of the two that he could jump on. Indicating that that's part of the challenge with that lack of permeability with these buildings, these structures here to the right of us as we're strolling down the sidewalk. We saw a couple, and we'll see an alleyway here in just a moment where this new apartment complex right next to the CCG, they've literally blocked off the alleyway here to prevent people from going through here, because otherwise you'd have some nice permeability right there. That's something that the city really has to instill, is that you need to have the ability to walk and bike through mid-block and not have things blocked. Now, I know there's challenges with the unhoused population and all that, but still, cohesiveness and convenience is paramount when you're talking about transit and people walking and biking to meaningful destinations.
Exactly. The city has been doing much better. One of the difficulties in Salt Lake City is that we have one of the largest block sizes of any city in the world.
You sure do, yeah.
It's 660 feet per block face.
You guys are famous/infamous for that.
Exactly. But we do have, especially in our downtown area, we have requirements baked into the zoning code that allow the city to require mid-block crossings of developers when things are redeveloped. But I'm guessing that development that we just walked past wasn't really big enough to trigger that requirement. If it had gone further, it probably would have.
I call bullshit on all that and just say, it doesn't matter if it's a small thing or not.
Exactly.
The city needs to actually kind of flex its muscles and be able to do that. But we'll go across the street here so that we can have the backdrop of this magnificent building, and it'll be front lit this time, so we'll be able to actually see it without a glare.
The street that we're now in the middle of is 500 West, and the Rio Grande Railway used to have its tracks coming right through here.
Yeah.
And it also, well, you have a little bit of the train shed
Yeah.
there.
That's still there, yeah.
The idea that we have with the Rio Grand Plan is that we want to dig a trench that would be at least 30 feet deep through here.
Right.
And put the railroad tracks that we'll be seeing here that are over a block west below grade for a little over a mile through downtown Salt Lake City,
Yeah.
which would eliminate multiple grade crossings.
Right.
I think at least 8 grade crossings, but it would also allow street connections to be reconnected that haven't been connected in maybe a century or more. But our hope is that will allow us to have the Rio Grande Depot be the main train station again in Salt Lake City.
How receptive is the state of Utah to, quote unquote, giving up their magnificent building that they somehow acquired?
That so far has not really been a big part of the conversation. The conversation is more focused on who is going to pay for the cost of this, which is estimated at being somewhere between 3 and 5 billion.
Sure.
To deal
this with the crossings,
project.
with the deal with the rail lines and all of that. All that being said, I mean, the UTA, the Utah Transit Authority, is a very successful transit authority and does an amazing job with the front runner and the tracks. So there's a huge amount of potential because guess what? You guys are using this stuff. I've been really impressed with the numbers of people who are using it. So you're on the cusp of just making it being a world-class rail city.
Exactly. And one of the big considerations that has gained, that's really making this plan gain a lot of traction is that the people that are working on the Rio Grand Plan were able to get an economic benefit study commissioned.
Right.
Because as we will see here in a minute, doing this project and burying the rails below grade here would free up a rail yard here a block to our west that isn't being used at all anymore.
Right.
And that rail yard, just the rail yard itself, takes up about 75 acres.
Okay.
So the numbers that came out of that economic benefit study estimates that even though it would cost upwards of $5 billion to do the project, it would, just doing the project itself would result in $12 billion worth of economic activity.
Yeah.
And then once that 75 acres is redeveloped, and we imagine it would be something somewhat similar to the gateway that we just walked through, but probably not as much commercial and geared a lot more towards housing. It's estimated that once that's those 75 acres are redeveloped, that would generate about $3 billion per year in increased economic activity. And then the one thing that wasn't calculated in that study is all of these other neighboring properties that are not directly part of the project, but those would likely all get redeveloped too and generate a whole lot of economic.
A whole lot of stuff. Because right now it's land that is not operating at its highest and best use because it's sitting fallow because it's who wants to be, next to that.
A lot of it is because, as I mentioned before, that this asset isn't really functioning as an asset. It's a blockage to connectivity in the neighborhood. As
we're rolling in this direction, since it's kind of ugly in the meantime, go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about the opportunity, because currently it's off here in no man's land.
Yeah.
And what I mean by it, I'm meaning, of course, the current Amtrak station and the current tracks location.
Right, which we can see one of our front runner commuter trains.
Yeah.
Coming through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I will never get over the irony that it's the historic train station that's actually kind of blocking this from being as accessible as it should be. But
because I mean, we could just imagine that okay, fine, it's not being actively used. It's going to take X number of billion to make it. Hey, let's just do a bike and pedestrian tunnel through the middle of the Rio Grande building, a la the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam.
Right.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool, but it wouldn't quite be like the dream.
No. The dream is that being the place where you get off.
Right. And another thing that is also going on, Salt Lake City was able to get federal funding through the Reconnecting Communities pilot program, and is doing a study to better connect the west side to the rest of Salt Lake City, which I live on the west side of Salt Lake City, so I am one of the affected residents.
Potential beneficiaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also am on the technical advisory committee for this study, so I'm giving input on that. But we're really, the more that we dig into it, the more that we realize that, well, one, we have Interstate 15 that fortunately is all grade separated, so no one actually has to cross the freeway, but that creates a psychological barrier and somewhat of a physical barrier because the crossings are limited. But then on top of that, we have the railroad tracks that create a much more difficult barrier. So we're trying to figure out what the best step is for the future to reconnect Salt Lake City. And
we just passed over some tracks lines, literally the tracks lines, the red line here.
That is our light rail.
That's the light rail.
Usually it's just the blue line, but it's also the red line right now because the red line that usually goes to the University of Utah, that line is being refurbished this summer. So they've detoured those trains here. And then over on the other side, you see Front Runner, which is our commuter rail line that goes between Ogden in the north to Provo in the south, which is a little over 80 miles. And I think we'll walk right out to the Amtrak platform and give everyone the view of what people see when they arrive here on Amtrak.
Because behold, this magnificent structure in front of us with the bluish top and white bottom.
That is the Amtrak station. We would go inside, but
it's not even open.
It's since the California Zephyr only comes through at night. It is only open from about 10 at night till about 5 in the morning. And we have our magnificent Amtrak platform, which this has been the Amtrak station, the building that we see behind us there, since 1999. And again, that was intended to be temporary, but has now been there over 25 years. And this platform was completed in about 2008 when they reconfigured things when the commuter rail line Front Runner was constructed and opened in 2008. But this is what people see when they arrive on Amtrak. And although it's usually in the dark,
Yeah.
unless the train's really late.
Really, really late.
But yeah, this is part of the approximately 75 acres that we are hoping to have redeveloped
Yeah.
at some point in the future.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are hoping to move these tracks over a block to 500 West.
Yeah. And we can see in the backdrop here, in fact, let's roll this way just a little bit and we'll be able to get the Rio Grande logo framed in the picture right off of your right shoulder there.
Yes.
So that gives you a really good indication of just how close it really is. Gosh, what an amazing thing. Now, you and I are doing this walking tour today because I snapped a photo and put it in my weekly newsletter update, and you're like, hey, let's do a walk and talk and get the story on this.
Yeah,
so thank you very much for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. You know, I know that there's a lot of challenges, but boy, Mike, there's a lot of opportunity here. And just the number of people that I'm seeing using the UTA transit lines, you guys have the opportunity to do some really great stuff. And really, neither of us really know what's going to happen with Amtrak service, you know, in North America. But boy, it would be wonderful for Salt Lake City to have just a grand entrance, you know, as part of connecting the Mountain West region to the West Coast, to the East Coast.
Exactly.
My gosh, yeah.
Yeah, because right now this platform only serves 2 trains a day, the eastbound and westbound California Zephyr.
Yeah.
And if all of the various visions that we have for increasing Amtrak service were to happen, we would go from having those 2 trains a day to close to 24 trains a day.
Wow, 24. Oh.
And that's
because there's all sorts of destinations that are not being served north and south that could be served, yes.
And in addition to having light rail and commuter rail coming through here.
And not being dropped off in the middle of a 75-acre wasteland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it is proximate. We do see the encroachment of some housing literally right there, which, gosh, if you're commuting on a daily basis to one of the the Wasatch Range, is that what you guys call it here?
Yes,
the Wasatch Range cities, and you're jumping on the front runner, or you're jumping on the tracks, you know, talk about transit-oriented development. You can live right there in the apartments, jump on, get to your destination where you're working, and so it's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
And we have one of our freight trains going by here too. That this one's just a short one, so this isn't one of the ones that causes us issues.
Great grief. Yes. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, Class 1 railroads like Union Pacific have been maximizing their profits by running longer and longer freight trains.
Right.
We sometimes will see freight trains that stretch all the way from our downtown down to the Roper Yard, which is the next big
Well, we
yard.
can't solve all the issues that exist with the freight line companies and the tracks that they run on, but we can make some impacts on the things that you can control, we can control.
Exactly, yeah.
Mike, thank you so much
you're
for
welcome.
this tour, and thank you for all of your hard work, dedicated hard work over the years. And that's a good point, is that roll up your sleeves, get passionate about something in your community and see if you can make a difference. You're serving on multiple boards and commissions and groups and doing what you can. Any final thoughts, pearls of wisdom for the audience as to how they can, you know, roll up their sleeves and make a difference in their community?
Well, just like you said, get involved in things. And when I first started on the Planning Commission, I honestly felt a lot of imposter syndrome.
Sure.
But I quickly realized that even some of the more experienced people, they still don't know everything.
They're kind of making it up anyways.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
really, it's like a whole lot more important to just be a good listener.
Yeah, yeah.
And to have
Not
empathy.
think that you have all the answers, yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and to collaborate, and so that is what I would recommend to people. And also, if you are interested in wanting to support passenger rail around the country, I would consider joining the National Rail Passengers Association, which does massive advocacy work for
and as
Amtrak,
you know,
especially.
this stop is part of my grand summer Active Towns Amtrak tour across North America, in large part done because of the episode that we recorded where you gave me a bunch of tips.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
you're welcome.
for all of that guidance, and thank you so much for supporting Active Towns over all these years. And such a joy and pleasure to see you once again in your hometown.
Thanks for all of your hard work too.
Yay!
Yay! Wow.
Right up
Well,
here, man. Boom.
Boom.
Yes.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this Train Talk episode in Salt Lake City with Mike Christensen. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and share it with a friend. And if you haven't done so already, I'd be honored to have you subscribe to the channel. Just click on that subscription button down below and ring that notifications bell. And if you're enjoying this content here on the Active Towns channel, please consider supporting my efforts by becoming an Active Towns ambassador. Hey, it's super easy to do. Just click on the join button down below. You can also leave a YouTube super thanks, or you can navigate over to activetowns.org, click on the support tab at the top of the page, and there's several different options, including becoming a Patreon supporter. Patrons do get early and ad-free access to all this video content, as well as you can make a donation to the nonprofit and buy me a coffee. And this is a wonderful opportunity to extend a very special thank you to all my Active Towns ambassadors supporting the channel financially. I simply could not do this without your support. Thank you all so very much. Well, until next time, this is John signing off by wishing you much activity, health, and happiness. Cheers and aloha.